Welcome to my presentation, Who or Whom? When do we use whom? When would it not be used? Is it just a grammar question or is there a social dimension to this? Is there an area where English is changing? I've divided my presentation in 6 parts. Hypothesis, research, social dimension, conclusion, the prescriptive rule and implications for teaching. Number 1, hypothesis. Why don't you stop the presentation here and make up your own? Number 2, research. How frequently are the terms used? Where do you find them? In word and phrase info, who appears over 1.1 million times. Who is used in newspapers and in spoken English, and it's the subject of a relative clause. There are 3 examples. Let me show you a room of a boy who will always be 7 years old. The doctors who had been attending him, Julie, who I hadn't seen in a long time. Whom, on the other hand, appears only 40,000 times, about 4% of who. It is used in written English academic texts, magazines and newspapers, and it is least used in spoken English. It's preceded by a preposition like of, for, to, with, on, from, about, and so on. The examples are the other people in the room, all but one of whom she knew, and to whom was it addressed, and refugees, many of whom depend on UN food aid. The second area of research was how has the usage changed over time? Are there trends? So first I looked at who and whom, and we see that in 1800 who was used 5 times more frequently than whom, but in 2008 this was 11 times as frequent. Now if you look at the next 3 graphs, we have who and whom with a preposition. So we have to who and to whom, and with who and with whom, and of who and of whom. In all of these 3 examples, it is very clear that in 1800, whom with a preposition is much more frequent, and then shows a very strong decline. Nowadays it's still more frequent, but never as much as it was in 1800. The next investigation was how frequent are questions with who as an object. So I looked at who do you live with whom do you live, and whom do we live with. Now the graph shows that since the 1960s, who do you live with has had an enormous increase and is today the most frequent. With whom do you live is used about half as often, and whom do you live with about 1/5. Now if you look at who did you see and whom did you see, who did you see nowadays is more frequent, but whom did you see is actually still quite frequent, not as frequent, but still quite frequent. So what are the social dimensions? If we look at For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway, or To Whom It May Concern, or a speech by Justin Trudeau, you see it's far too easy with social media shaping our interactions to engage only with people with whom we already agree, members of our tribe. We can see that because whom is used in academic and written English and is less frequently used today, perhaps it's perceived as being a bit old-fashioned, formal and snobbish. In the New York Times there was this quote: "This is for now at least the way standard written English is supposed to work. There may occasionally be light, conversational and colloquial contexts where whom, while correct, seems stiff or awkward." In conclusion, who we use more frequently than whom. It is mainly for spoken English and newspapers. Whom is declining in relation to who, and is used mainly in academic and formal written English. Whom is still used with a preceding preposition, but you can use who instead of whom. Both are for people. This suggests the following rules. in most cases use who. For example, who do you live with? Use whom after prepositions, as especially in formal texts, to whom it may concern. Now the prescriptive rule, it's very simple. Who for subjects, whom for objects. And there is a test. Substitute him and he and use whom if him fits and who if he fits. So let's do the test. Who did you see? Did you see him is obviously correct, so we should actually use whom did you see, except that this is only used half as often as who did you see. Who saw you? He saw you, so this is the subject, so he is correct. If we look at who did you live with, whom did you live with, and with whom did you live, we do the test, and do you live with him is correct. So, according to the prescriptive rule, whom do you live with is the correct answer, but it's only used about 1/5 of who do you live with. Now, for teaching, the implications are most ESL exercises use the prescriptive rule, who for subject, whom for objects. Most exercises have just one right answer. Few indicate that this is not a 100% rule. Ideally, the students know the rule, but also when it's not okay to use it. As this is a presentation to fellow teachers, I would like to ask some questions. Where are your students at? Is this a real problem for your students? How does teaching this fit in with the overall course? And what am I actually teaching? Am I teaching who or whom? Or sentence structure, or a rule? Could this be used for intermediate level and higher? And what about teaching this with related issues? And I found an amazing website which just does that. Thank you very much.